Welcome everyone. I first made this channel alongside my Instagram page in the middle of 2024. I've interacted with a countless number of different MMA fan bases throughout the year, and a lot of them are very toxic online. I understand it to a degree because I've contributed to that toxicity through my videos and posts throughout the year. However, there seems to be five fan bases that are really annoying compared to the rest because they are retarded, yet they do not accept that they are retarded and are blatantly spreading disinformation. So this video is dedicated to the five most insufferable fan bases throughout 2024. Number five, we have the Israel Adesanya fans. Listen, Israel Adesanya is a phenomenal fighter. Regardless of his recent losses, he's very good, and I don't want people to think that I'm saying that Israel Adesanya is a terrible fighter. My problem with Izzy fans is that they truly believe he's one of the three best strikers in the UFC. You hear guys like Kenny Okoye, MMA Joey, and Ariel Helwani just bounce on Izzy's dick nonstop. When you listen to any of these guys talk about Adesanya, they can convince you that Adesanya is just leagues above most of the middleweight division. First off, he lost to Sean Strickland handedly in September of 2023. He then lost to Dricus du Plessis right after. And he has a 4-4 record since 2021. Yet somehow he is always holding the belt or challenging for the UFC belt. How does Adesanya have a 50% win-loss record over the last 3 years, yet he is always fighting for a UFC title? I will never understand it. Second, his fans are in denial that Adesanya can have boring fights. Now, I think he gets too much hate at some time because he does have exciting fights, like when he fought Paulo Costa and Alex Pereira twice. But at the same time, if you criticize any of his performances over Marvin Vittori, Jared Cannonier, and Yoel Romero, apparently you just don't appreciate high level striking according to Izzy fans. Izzy fans claim that high level striking is where you watch Izzy feint nonstop and throw six leg kicks around for 25 minutes straight. And this is not even me mentioning the fact that Izzy jerks his dog on camera, his racist remarks, or the fact that he's very cringe. If you have any problems with Adesanya, it's like you're speaking heresy to Israel Adesanya fans. Now, a lot of this has died down because he just recently lost to Dricus du Plessis. Even though he lost, I did find the fight overall to be very fun because both Izzy and Dricus du Plessis put on a scrap for the fans at UFC 305. Regardless of the result, if he continues to fight the way he fought Dricus at UFC 305, I would start to appreciate Izzy more. But considering his performances over the last 3 years, it's very hard to believe that he will consistently come out like how he did against Dricus du Plessis. Yet Adesanya fans will try to convince you that Izzy is always this masterful tactician with elusive head movement, deceptive feints, unmatchable technical striking, and explosive highlights, despite being 4-4 over his last 8 fights. Shut the fuck up, Izzy fans. Stop trying to attack people online if they criticize Izzy, and maybe the rest of the fan base can come to terms with Israel Adesanya. Number four, we have the Muhammad Mokaev fans. Muhammad Mokaev fans will jump up and down and swear that he's the answer to Alexander Pantoja, the current flyweight champion of the UFC. They also claim that the only reason the UFC cut him is because he shoots a lot of takedowns as a Muslim. Neither of those things are true, and I know this because I watch Mokaev fight and I listen to other fighters speak about Muhammad Mokaev. The only reason people truly believe Makayev is able to defeat Alexander Pantoja is because he's an undefeated Dagestani. But you watch him fight, how are you drawing to the conclusion that he is the answer to defeating Pantoja? His fight with Alex Perez, Makayev looked terrible. His fight with Manel Kape, Makayev looked terrible. Did he win those fights? Yes, but failing 80% of your takedowns consistently and throwing 20 ineffective strikes across 15 minutes should not convince you guys that he will be the answer to Alexander Pantoja, who is actually really good. You see, Alexander Pantoja is the flyweight champion of the world. He's defeated Brandon Royval twice and Brandon Moreno twice. And even those guys are way better than Alex Perez and arguably Manel Kape. If Makayev was able to put on an impressive performance against Alex Perez, like Tatsuro Taira did, and not lay and pray while failing 85% of his takedowns, it would have been more convincing that he would be the one to defeat Alexander Pantoja. As for the reason he got come from the UFC, you can find a couple of interviews on YouTube of fighters and coaches speaking against Muhammad Makayev. There seems to be a common pattern where Makayev is always trying to throw hands with fighters backstage. Now, I personally don't care that he's doing this because that's probably what a lot of fighters do. My problem is that the times he is legally allowed to throw hands with somebody, he would rather sniff crotches for 15 minutes straight. On top of that, he snitched on himself at UFC 304 when he confirmed that he sucker punched Manel Cap in a hotel after falsely alluring him to take a photo to show Muslim solidarity. The reason he did that apparently was because Cap and Makayev were on beef prior at the UFC PI, and Cap allegedly dropped him and gave him a cut above the eye. It is not because Makayev is a boring fighter that he got cut from the UFC. It is because Makayev is picking fights with fighters backstage, and that is something the UFC normally doesn't allow unless your name is Jorge Masvidal or Conor McGregor. Could the UFC have cut him? Not really, because the remaining fight for the flyweight division is dead without Makayev. I do think Makayev's fight style is terrible, but he's the only one who can realistically sell a fight with Alexander Pantoja. However, I don't think he is the one to defeat Pantoja, and that is based on watching Makayev's fights and not because he is an undefeated Dagestani. Nor am I surprised that he got cut from the UFC for his actions, and that is something that Makayev fans need to accept. Next, we have the French fans. Now, I do still think that French fans are one of the best in the MMA space because they make fights and post fight interviews really hype. However, it is no secret that the UFC has been favoring French fighters recently, and it shows with some of the decisions lately in their high profile fights. For example, earlier in June, the main event between Jared Cannonier and Nasruddin Imavov ended prematurely after Imavov rocked Cannonier in the fourth round. Another example will be when Cyril Gahn won a robbery decision against Alexander Volkov, who even Dana White agrees was a bullshit decision. I'm not here to say that it's the French fan base's fault that the UFC is making these terrible choices. However, when you go online to talk about these fights, it's only the French fans who justify this. Like, look at this leg lock attempt from Cyril Gahn in the second round, because this is the main argument French fans use to justify why Gunn won his fight with Alexander Volkov. I'm here to tell you that even a monkey who practiced Brazilian Jiu Jitsu for a month can tell you that leg lock is nowhere near locked in. Gon is just holding on to it because he's retarded and he thinks he's the Jiu Jitsu wizard who can lock up leg locks like he's Gordon Ryan on the ground. This was the only relative success Gon had in the second round, and it is not real success because Volkov was able to get out like 15 seconds later. And when you compare the total number of strikes and the total number amount of control time both fighters were able to acquire in the second round, and this decision makes even less sense. Yet somehow only the French fans are able to justify this. I hope the UFC puts a French prospect against a Mexican prospect because then they'll really be confused as to what to do. Should they rig it for the French or the Mexican? Because they are trying to build a fan base in both countries. Who knows? But I hope that it happens really soon because then the UFC will have actual incentive to fix this. And up next, we have the Movsar Evloev fan. This is not me saying that Movsar Evloev is a bad fighter. If anything, I started to appreciate him a little bit more after his fight with Aljamain Sterling. However, Evloev fans treat this guy like he's the featherweight Habib Nurmagomedov. First off, Habib actually knew how to finish his opponent off when the opportunity presented itself. This is something that Evloev has never achieved in the UFC. Second, these fans justify Evloev being a complete pussy and call it a strategic maneuver. In his fight with Arnold Allen, Allen was able to snuff a takedown in the third round and tried to punish Evloev by repeatedly kneeing him in the face. The problem at the time was that Mark Goddard thought this was an illegal knee to the face because Evloev was posting his arm onto the canvas whenever Evloev would go for the knee to the face. But if you watch the sequence, you can see Allen is completely aware of what Evloev was trying to do. But every time Allen would try to knee him in the face, he would always lift Evloev's upper body off the canvas, preventing Evloev from trying to post and then knee him to the face. Evloev, rather than trying to block the knee or trying to get out of the clinch, would repeatedly try to post his arm onto the canvas because he pussied out, knowing that he may or may not be up 2 rounds of the fight. For some reason, this is commended by Evloev fans as tactical brilliance. In what fucking world is getting knee to the face repeatedly in the fight just to hope that the ref will call the sequence a foul? Tactical brilliance. This is what Evloev fans think tactical brilliance is, and quite frankly, this is disgusting. Evloev, again, is a good fighter. He beat everyone else pretty fairly, but it was competitive. And the fact that Evloev fans still think that he's this unbeatable force in the featherweight division just because he's from a similar region to Dagestan is complete delusion. And these fans need to realize that he is not the featherweight Habib Nurmagomedov. Finally, we get to the Jon Jones fans. Where do I even begin with the Jon Jones fans? I'm not even going to use the argument that most people use against Jon Jones fans, like the fact that his fans blatantly ignore repeated assaults against women, including his wife, or the fact that he's tested positive for steroids more than anyone else on the current UFC roster. In fact, if you want to call Jon Jones the greatest fighter of all time, I'm not going to argue with you because there is a legitimate argument. My problem with Jones fans is that they think he's this godlike figure who is able to destroy anybody he goes up against with relative ease. If you have watched his fights since 2019, the only way you can come to that conclusion is if you are snorting that good shit Jones is having on the weekends. Other than when he fought Cyril Gahn, who is a complete retard when it comes to grappling. When has Jones ever looked worlds apart from his opponents that he fought? Hell, he outright lost to Dominic Reyes, who is currently ranked number 11 in the light heavyweight division. Yet Jones fans will still believe he's worlds apart from everyone at light heavyweight and heavyweight right now. You know what? I'm convinced that Jon Jones fans do not watch MMA fights. Most Jones fans believe that he's going to knock out Tom Aspinall or do whatever he wants with it. Let me ask you this. When has Jon Jones ever knocked anybody out? Other than 42-year-old Stipe Miocic, who has not fought since the beginning of the pandemic, the last time Jones knocked anybody out was when he fought Alexander Gustafsson in 2018. And before then, it's really rare to see Jon Jones knock anybody out. You have to count all the way back to 2013 since his rematch with Gustafsson if you want to find another legitimate Jon Jones KO. This isn't me saying that Jon Jones is not a great fighter, because I've accepted that he is. The problem is that these Jones fans believe he's worlds apart from the rest of the competition when there's over 8 years of evidence to point that he's not other worlds apart from the rest of his competition. Also, why is he even this high up on the pound for pound rankings? Other than Cyril Gahn, all of the fighters Jon Jones has defeated throughout his career are either retired or contemplating retirement. And yes, he did not beat Dominic Reyes. Just watch the first 3 rounds out of 5, and you will see that Dominic Reyes clearly won the first 3 rounds. Who has Jones defeated on the current UFC roster that warrants him to be the number 2 pound for pound fighter on the planet? If you want to say that Jon Jones is the GOAT, whatever. But he does not represent the current best fighters in the UFC because he is actively refusing to fight the current best fighter in his division in Tom Aspinall. If you want to say that Jones beats Tom Aspinall, that is also fine because Jon Jones is a great fighter and Tom Aspinall has never fought anybody at Jones's level, especially when it comes to grappling. However, Jones is not going to run over Tom Aspinall. For goodness sakes, he took 4 years into retirement, Stipe Miocic to the third round in 2024. I am extremely confident that even if Aspinall loses, he's going to have a much harder fight than when he fought Miocic. Because unlike Miocic, Aspinall is not a geriatric corpse who is 4 years into retirement. Aspinall is a 31-year-old looking to become the UFC heavyweight champion. All right, this is what I'm going to end it for today. Make sure to like and subscribe. Happy New Year to you all, and I will see you guys after the new year. Peace.